set it in. Once it's seated, now bring the ram up just a little bit, put your casing back in, push it down, you'll feel it kind of contact, push forward just enough, and you'll seat the new primer in. And as you can see, that primer is nice and seated. Now, one thing you want to do is you want to make sure it's nice and flush with the head of the casing. If it's protruding out at all in any way, when it gets jacked into the chamber, you could have an accidental, discharge of that casing. If you drop it, you could hit something and have another, it's another way to have an accidental discharge. So you want to make sure that the casing is nice and flush, the primer is nice and flush to the head of the casing. Now, once we get to this stage, now we're actually ready to charge the casing. Now, at this step, what you want to do is take, now I have two books here I'll show you. I have the Hornady Handbook Cartridge Reloading book, and I also have the Speer book. So we're going to look up in here. Now I already know what the numbers are, but we just want to go through, and you want to look up and find 40 caliber Smith & Wesson. And what I happen to know is that that's on page 956. So I'm just going to go there. So we go to 40 caliber Smith & Wesson. Now this is very helpful. It tells you a lot about how the round was developed, where it came from, some history on it, and it also kind of tells you that with their particular studies, what powder actually works best. Now they actually tell us in here that accurate number 7 is actually one of the better powders for this particular round, and that's what we're going to use. That's what I use for all my 40 cal. So we look up on here, we want to find our bullet. I don't know if we can pick this up for the camera, I hope we can. I use 180 grain XTP. Let me see if I can find that for you. 40 cal, 180 grain XTP. And you'll see it right there, 40 cal, 180 grain XTP. That's a hollow point round. So we look in here and we find 180 grain bullets. We find XTP, and then we look down and find our powder. We're using accurate number 7, and it tells us that we can range anywhere from 850 feet per second at 7.2 grains of powder up to the maximum of 1,000 feet per second at 9 grains of powder. Now, I can tell you a little bit just from experience that my particular 40 cal, the Glock Gen 427, seems to work better when I charge it with about 8.8. So I don't actually go to the maximum, but just through trial and error I found that out. Every gun runs a little bit different. So what we want to do is actually charge this round, and again we're going to charge it with 8.8. So what I'm going to do now is I turn my digital scale on, I let it go to 0, I set my powder tray on, it weighs it, hit the tare weight, brings it back down to 0, and at this point we want to weigh out our charge. So I'm going to put 8.8 grains of powder in our tray here. Give me just a second. 7.45. Let's see, 8.34, 8.5, 6, 8.7, 8.8, 8.8. Actually, it's a little bit more. I'm going to make this, I'm going to lighten this up just a hair. And weigh this again. Okay, 8.8 grains of powder. That's where we want to be. Now, at this point, and normally I would set up my powder master. I'll show you that again. Normally I would set up the powder master, and you can dial this thing in, and once it's on the money, every time you crank this handle, you can pump out 8.8 grains. And then what I'll do is I'll set up my tray and come over, and once I know it's on the money, and I usually check it every 10th round just to make sure it's staying consistent, but I can literally just go, every round and pump them out a little quicker. But again, for the sake of this video, we're doing one round at a time. So now what we want to do is actually charge our round. Okay, so we're charged and ready. Move the camera back, get it set up back here on the press again. Now, the next thing I normally do, and you can do it in whatever step you want. I normally do this ahead of time, and I think I actually already did, but I'm going to do it again for the sake of the video, is now we switch to the second die. And all this die is really going to do is just kind of flare out the top of the casing so that it'll receive the bullet a little better. Now again, I believe this has already been done, but you just slide it in, bring it down, you'll feel a little bit of light pressure. And again, it just opens up the neck of that bullet in order to receive the casing in order to receive the bullet. So now we go to our third die. Now this is one that's going to seat and taper. Now we're ready to set our casing and set our bullet under our casing, and now we're ready to press it in. Now at this point we should be on the money. Now again, I know that the let's just pull this to make sure, but I'm pretty positive that the overall case length is supposed to be at 1.135. So let's take a look at it. We're going to make sure 1.135 is the maximum length for the whole cartridge. So what we're going to do now is take our digital caliper and turn it on, 0, and measure our cartridge. We are 1.1. I don't know if the camera can pick that up or not. We're actually at 1.135.5, so almost 1.136. Again, just through experience, I can tell you that that little half a thousandth is nothing at all to worry about. So again, just kind of a quick overview. Remember to always inspect your casings. Make sure that it's a good casing. You don't want any bulges, splits, or cracks. Once you've inspected your casing, you tumble it. Use some good either walnut media or corn media. It'll clean it up really good. Take your little neck brush and clean it out. Make sure there's no media fragments down inside the casing. And then of course go to your first die, which is going to resize and deprime. And then of course clean out the primer pocket. And then the next step is actually to reprime the casing. Then of course charge your casing with the proper amount of powder. Once that's done, flare out the top of the casing to receive the bullet, and then actually press and seat the bullet. And now every single one of these I'm going to check with a caliper and make sure, especially on an automatic. You want to make sure that the overall case length is the right length. If this thing is any too long at all, it might not cycle through. Now I mentioned earlier that this particular round I run with 8.8 grains of accurate number 7, and the reason is when I first started reloading this cartridge, I usually try to start out on the lower end. No need to really go to the maximum, and what I found is that by not going closer to the maximum, there really wasn't enough of a charge to cycle the weapon. And so what would happen is it would jam. It would basically, the cartridge, the slide would not come far back enough to actually kick the next cartridge in. So some of those things are just going to be trial and error. You're going to have to kind of see what works for you. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you'll like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you like what you've seen here tonight, say so. If you dislike it, tell me what you dislike about it. I certainly don't know everything. Just sharing with you, my experience. Cheap Tills and Mooch, signing out. Peace.